Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you were before this committee earlier, you were asked information about who's been fired, who's been retired, et cetera, et cetera. We did not get that information from you, and subsequent to that, I think a number of us wrote letters to you asking for this information, and you had a department that had around 70,000 employees. Is that correct?
It was hard to find out the exact information, but the closest we could come to was it was around 65,000 a year ago.
Okay, so that's a lot of employees, and so my question remains, how many people have been fired, took early retirement? Where are we in terms of the number of employees that you have? And I know that a whole bunch of them work for the Park Service and all of those kinds of areas that have been tremendously cut. So why don't you provide us with that information today?
I'd be happy to get back to you on the number of people that have taken early retirement, the number earlier voluntary retirement. You used the word fired. The only time anyone would have been fired from the organization is if they somehow had an action. So we're talking small number of people that would have actually been fired.
You mean that if people were fired, they actually were fired for cause? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes.
So since you were asked this last time, it's been about a year, why are you not prepared to give us this information today? And especially the people who are working for our national park services, et cetera, these are the people who interact with the public.
Well,
And I'd like to know what kind of cuts have been imposed on those services as a result of cuts to the workforce.
Well, the goal, of course, is to have no cuts to services and no cuts to hours and no cuts whatever, because we had so many people working for the Park Service that didn't work in a park. It took us 2 months to find out a number, roughly, the estimate was roughly about 26,000 people that were working for the Park Service. But understand, the HR systems that were never funded were so disparate and there was just no information. We couldn't even find out. We still today are trying to find out about 2% of the 65,000. We don't know which units they're attached to. There was so much hiring where people were working from home that when they're working from home, sometimes in a location, we're sending a check that's nowhere near a national park.
I find it very totally unacceptable that you don't know what's going on in your own department. But of critical interest to me are the people who are employed at Interior that actually deal with, for example, with the park services. So, we still don't have that information. Let me get on to another question. Earlier this year, I joined a number of my colleagues in sending a letter to you expressing concern about efforts by the National Park Service to erase history on sites that discuss things such as Native American history and slavery. For example, the removal of the slavery exhibit at the President's house in Philadelphia. And your response, which I only recently received yesterday, fails to answer any of the questions we asked, and instead you stated, quoting you, the NPS is entrusted with preserving and interpreting our nation's heritage and must ensure park interpretive materials accurately reflect American history and not partisan ideology. Mr. Secretary, is slavery a partisan ideology?
Let me start with the examples that you have. If you'd care,
I would say that the question I'm asking you is a yes or no question, because you said you're removing this information because you don't want any
I'm responding to the
ideology?
statement that you made at the beginning of your remarks, which is false.
How about answering the question that I asked you right now? Is
your
slavery
question is based on a false premise.
Is slavery a partisan ideology that require the removal of information on slavery in your park?
You're basing this question on the idea that somehow something has been removed. I would invite you or your staff to go to either the website. You can see the information that is still there. Some of these examples that are floating around the media that saying things have been removed, they haven't been removed. In the case of Philadelphia, there's a weird injunction where we can't put the new signage up, and yet what is on the new signage, which is not hiding any points of our history, is available for anyone to read. And I would invite you to read the language that we have and see if it's objectionable to them. And of course, it is not an ideology.
So is your answer slavery is not a partisan ideology? So your answer is
There's
no, it's
there's
not
a
a
double
partisan
negative there,
ideology.
but I would just say that the characterization that somehow there was a desire to whitewash history and hide aspects of our history is just simply false. And all someone has to do, rather than...
Okay, why is it that you just can't say, no, that slavery is not a partisan ideology? What about information in your parks relating to the internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II? Is that partisan ideology that required the removal of such information?
I don't believe any of that information has been removed, so I'm not, we're having a theoretical discussion, and we should talk about
Oh, I
what's
believe
actually
that this kind of information was removed. So if none of this is happening, excuse me, Mr.
I'd like to have
Secretary.
specific examples of where
Mr.
it's been
Chairman,
removed.
reclaiming my time, please.
Yeah, wrap it up if you can.
I am glad to
We're over
hear
time.
that none of these kinds of pieces of information are being removed, but I basically, Mr. Chairman, have serious concerns about what is happening in the interior and all of the programs that relate to Alaska Natives, American Indians, and Native Hawaiians, and all of those kinds of programs, and what's happening to the cuts to those programs. I have serious concerns about your leadership at the interior. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.